Resident Evil 3 Remake is a hard game to review, and it's a hard game to recommend right now. Capcom reminds me of this like prodigy child genius kid who is super smart but won't apply themselves. Like, I'm not mad, Capcom, I'm just disappointed, and also a little bit mad. If this was a bad game, I would just come out and say, this is a bad game, I don't think you should buy it, case closed. But it's not a bad game at all. In fact, it's actually incredible at times. It's also incredibly frustrating at times. If this game was not part of the Resident Evil franchise, if it was not a follow-up to one of the best remakes ever, and if it cost about 30 quid, this would be a totally different video. However, because of those caveats, it is very difficult for me to say, right this second, I think yes, you should go out and buy this. Well, obviously don't go out, stay inside, download it. The point that I'm trying to make is that everything I'm about to say is coming from a place of deep admiration for the RE series, and also frustration that as enjoyable as this game is, it could have easily been the best game of 2020, and there's nothing worse than wasted potential. Also, a big thank you to Capcom for sending a review code for this, after I'd already bought it, but I guess it's the thought that counts. Lastly, I'm just going to refer to the game as RE3 because RE3 Remake is a mouthful to keep repeating. Okay, let's get into it.
Carlos, you didn't even think to ask fine young lady her name? She is an elite operative of RPD, Special Tactics and Rescue Service. Her name is something Valentine.
So, Resident Evil 3 Remake is a remake of a sequel, and it's also a sequel to a remake. That remake being RE2, which released last year to much critical acclaim. It was also one of my games of the year. Couple that with the excellent RE7, which came 2 years before that, and the result was some astronomically high expectations for Capcom to live up to. So you might be thinking that puts them at a disadvantage out of the gates, and well, yes and no. Yes, because obviously it's very hard to catch lightning in a bottle not just once, but twice. But also no, because much of the groundwork for this game was actually already in place. RE3 uses the same engine, the same mechanics, many of the same assets, and even some of the same full environments as the prior title. That's not to say that RE3 is a copy and paste job. Clearly, lots of work went into creating these new gorgeous environments and new characters. There's just not enough of them to justify marketing this as a full-fat title. I feel the main problem I have here is it's stuck in some weird limbo space between not quite being a DLC and not quite being a full game. Front to back, a full run will take you between 4 to 6 hours, and without any second playthroughs akin to Resident Evil 2's alternative A/B modes, it just feels like it's over far too quickly. That said, I'm not one of these people that equates game value to game length. You only have to look at experiences like Journey or play Dead Inside to see great examples of short games. Here's the thing though, Inside never really felt short. It just feels like the right amount of time to tell the story that it's trying to tell. RE3 feels more like a highlights reel of the sort of best high-octane moments of the game, without realizing that it's actually the downtime and the puzzle solving between those moments that gives the set pieces their oomph. And while there are definitely moments of true survival horror greatness, they end just as quickly as they begin. So what's good here? What did I like? Well, the neon-lit streets and oppressive atmosphere remain fully intact. The RE engine is on top form and environments, characters and enemies all look and sound fantastic. It's hard to knock RE3 on its presentation and production value, though there are some truly terrible lip-syncing issues, but this is supposed to be the positives. So the levels. While definitely lacking the complexity of the previous game, there are nonetheless some great sections. The hospital level was a particular highlight. It was tense, ammo was scarce, hallways were long and winding and required me to think on my feet, and the level which felt the most in keeping with what fans are expecting from the series. Some people I've spoken to found the combat kinda clunky. I actually disagree here. I enjoyed the combat and the gunplay, possibly slightly more this time around. Ammo is still kinda scarce, but after an initial playthrough I went back for a second go and I found my knowledge of enemies and levels to be a huge advantage. So much so I actually began to feel more like the super cop badass Jill is supposed to be, dispatching larger enemies with single shots and accumulating enough ammo to defeat bosses with relative ease. Now, a lot of people would argue this is the complete antithesis of Resident Evil and survival horror in general, and whilst I would agree, if the game insists on being action heavy like the source material, then the action might as well be enjoyable, and for the most part it is. Speaking of source material, it's hard to mark the remake down for being shorter and less puzzle focused than its prior release, when the original is a shorter and less puzzle focused game. However, the problem is Capcom have taken an already streamlined experience and cut even more from the game, when arguably this was their chance to embellish it, to build upon what was there and to expand it. Is that not the whole purpose of modernizing a classic? I'm struggling to see what major innovations RE3 brought to the table that RE2 didn't inherently do better. My issue though isn't what's here, it's what's not here. There wasn't a section of the remake I didn't enjoy and wouldn't be happy to have in a longer title. It just feels like it's missing breathing space, and levels flash by like fields out of a train window without ever really giving you a chance just to take them in. One addition I appreciated was the new shop feature that unlocks after finishing the game. By completing challenges which can be found in the game, you'll be able to buy items that give you a starting advantage on a subsequent playthrough. These are things like items that increase your damage, more inventory space, which as RE fans will know is arguably the most important resource, and even lockpicks and bolt cutters, which allow you to get through the game in a truly obscene amount of time. I clocked a run at 62 minutes with these. While the previously mentioned A/B runs are sorely missed, these do give it some good replay value, and I must admit, I had an enjoyable time trying to speedrun the game, which is not normally my forte. This does extend the runtime for sure, but this doesn't get past the anemic feeling to the game's pacing. So the Resident Evil 3 remake, which they definitely should have called the 3-make, is going to be a deeply divisive game. I know there will be people here that vehemently disagree with my position, and that's fine. I adore the series and I adore the direction Capcom have taken the series. I just can't help but feel with another year or so in the oven, this could have once again set the gaming world alight, rather than been an enjoyable but brief flash in the pan. I await Resident Evil Village with bated breath. Capcom, it's over to you.